The year is 1975. Saigon is falling. A North Vietnamese soldier runs through the streets carrying a rifle that has become the symbol of revolution itself, an AK-47. Simple, rugged, and virtually indestructible, this weapon has armed guerrillas in Vietnam, freedom fighters in Africa, and revolutionaries across 3 continents. It's been buried in mud for months and still fires. Dropped from helicopters and keeps working. Used by child soldiers who can barely lift it, and by hardened veterans who trust their lives to its reliability. No weapon in history has been produced in greater numbers. No rifle has changed the world more profoundly. This is the AK-47, the Automat Kalashnikova model 1947. Cheap, reliable, ubiquitous. 100 million have been produced. It appears on national flags, in revolutionary art, and in the hands of anyone who needs firepower but can't afford precision. How did one Soviet rifle reshape warfare and rebellion on every continent? Welcome to Engines of Conquest. Today we examine the most influential weapon of the modern age. The story begins with trauma. 1941. Tank commander Mikhail Kalashnikov lies wounded in a Soviet hospital, watching his country torn apart by German invasion. German submachine guns have given Wehrmacht infantry devastating close-quarters firepower. Soviet troops fight back with bolt-action rifles designed in the 1890s. The technological gap is killing his comrades. Kalashnikov begins designing from his hospital bed, not as a professional engineer but as a patriotic tank commander who understands that wars are won by ordinary soldiers with reliable weapons. His sketches prioritize simplicity over sophistication, durability over precision, functionality over elegance. The breakthrough comes from studying the German St. G44, the world's first assault rifle. But where German engineering emphasizes precision manufacturing, Kalashnikov designs for mass production. His rifle uses stamped steel instead of machined parts, loose tolerances instead of tight fits, simple mechanisms instead of complex systems. The design philosophy is revolutionary. Build a weapon so simple that illiterate peasants can maintain it, so robust that it functions in any environment, so cheap that every revolution can afford it. The AK-47 isn't the world's best rifle. It's the world's most practical rifle. By 1947, the prototype passes Soviet tests with unprecedented reliability scores. But Stalin makes a decision that changes world history. Instead of restricting AK-47 production, the Soviet Union will give the design away. Every communist ally, every socialist movement, every anti-Western rebel group will receive manufacturing rights and technical assistance. The AK-47 becomes the Soviets' most successful export, not sold for profit but distributed for political influence. By 1960, factories in China, East Germany, Poland, and dozens of developing nations are producing millions of Kalashnikovs annually. Vietnam, 1965. American soldiers armed with sophisticated M16 rifles face an enemy carrying seemingly primitive AK-47s. The contrast appears overwhelming. High-tech precision versus crude simplicity. Then the monsoon rains begin and everything changes. The M16 jams in Vietnamese mud. Its tight tolerances and complex mechanisms fail in tropical humidity. Meanwhile, Viet Cong fighters pull AK-47s from rice paddies, shake out the water, and keep firing. The reliability gap proves more important than the accuracy gap. But Vietnam is just the beginning. Across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, liberation movements discover that AK-47s provide military capability previously available only to major powers. A few thousand Kalashnikovs can arm entire revolutionary armies. The psychological impact proves as important as the tactical advantage. The AK-47 becomes the symbol of resistance to Western power, the equalizer that allows peasant armies to challenge professional militaries. Its distinctive silhouette appears in revolutionary propaganda worldwide. Angola. Cuban advisors train MPLA fighters with AK-47s to fight South African forces equipped with Western weapons. The rifles prove so reliable that they're passed down through generations, grandfather to father to son, still functional after decades of service. The weapon's durability creates unexpected consequences. Unlike sophisticated systems that require spare parts and maintenance, AK-47s continue functioning long after conflicts end. They fuel crime, terrorism, and insurgency for decades beyond their intended use. By 1990, the AK-47 has appeared in more conflicts than any weapon in history. It's the rifle of choice for revolutionaries, criminals, and anyone who needs firepower but lacks resources for sophisticated weapon systems. The Cold War ends, but the AK-47's influence only grows. With Soviet subsidies gone, black market production explodes. Counterfeit Kalashnikovs manufactured in basement workshops flood global arms markets, selling for less than a chicken in some regions. The rifle's simplicity enables this proliferation. Unlike complex weapons requiring sophisticated infrastructure, AK-47s can be manufactured with basic tools. The design's loose tolerances actually improve when produced by unskilled workers. Imprecision becomes an advantage. Modern estimates suggest over 100 million AK-47s and variants exist worldwide, one for every 70 people on Earth. No other manufactured object approaches this distribution except perhaps the bicycle. The rifle has become humanity's most ubiquitous tool of violence. The weapon's influence extends beyond conflict into culture, politics, and economics. It appears on Mozambique's national flag. Revolutionary movements worldwide adopt its silhouette as their symbol. Arms control experts classify it as the most destabilizing weapon ever created. But the AK-47's greatest legacy may be proving that simplicity beats sophistication in most real-world applications. While militaries pursue ever more complex weapons, the world's conflicts are still fought primarily with 70-year-old Soviet technology that prioritizes function over form. Mikhail Kalashnikov lived to age 94, long enough to see his creation become both liberation tool and instrument of oppression. He expressed regret that his patriotic design enabled so much violence, but recognized that simple, reliable tools inevitably find their way to those who need them most. Today, as military technology becomes increasingly sophisticated and expensive, the AK-47 reminds us that the most influential weapons aren't always the most advanced. Sometimes the greatest military innovation is making effective tools accessible to everyone. 75 years ago, a wounded tank commander sketched a rifle design that would reshape global conflict forever. Mikhail Kalashnikov didn't intend to create the world's most prolific weapon. He simply wanted to build something reliable enough to help his country survive. But his emphasis on simplicity over sophistication, function over form, accessibility over excellence created something unprecedented. A weapon that democratized violence itself. Today, as we develop increasingly complex military technologies, as artificial intelligence and advanced materials promise to revolutionize warfare once again, we might remember the lesson of the AK-47. The most influential innovations aren't always the most sophisticated ones. Sometimes changing the world requires not building something better, but building something everyone can use. What weapon changed history the most?